recently? What have you been up to most recently?
I just made a record, a CD they say nowadays, but also on vinyl, with 12 songs, and it's 14 songs, and it's about 12 years ago I did this. It's only my third personal record, you know, with songs without a band. So I make one every 12 years.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
Will you tour with it then?
I'm not sure, but I'll do some gigs to start with and to present the CD and some television things. And then maybe in February I do a small tour, and if I like it and if people want to hear it, and then I'll do some more.
Okay.
But I'm not in a hurry or eager or anything.
When's the release date?
7th of November. And I play 6 November in the Milky Way here in Amsterdam for the press.
Launch it, yeah. The name of the album is?
En toch.
En toch.
En toch is more like no, 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 but maybe.
Okay.
En toch. And it's because I've felt the urge to write songs, and when you get a little bit older, you have a lot to look back at, you know, a lot of years. And I had some songs I wanted to do about my youth and about my mother and things like that. It's very autobiographical.
Okay.
And but I said to myself, well, I'm 66 now, I cannot sing about love. And toch, I made 14 songs about love.
Yeah. What are your earliest memories performing music?
Was on a recorder, I'm afraid.
Okay.
That's how most children in Holland start playing, get to know music. But when I was 12, oh no, when I was 11, my mother gave me my first guitar. And so I started playing and learning, and when I was 14 or 15 I started playing in bands in Tilburg, the town where I lived. Okay. And I played on guitar, I started on guitar.
How long did you play guitar before you started playing bass?
Well, Tilburg was like, you know, the south of Holland, and it was like Den Haag, a lot of bands. It had still had a tradition of a lot of bands. And I started at the bottom, and I had one goal, and that was La Cruche, which had a French name because the south of Holland was more French orientated and everything. And La Cruche was the best band far beyond the rest. And I wanted to go there, so it took me about 14 bands to get there. Oh, wow. In a few years. And then I was playing, and there was an organ player, he was a professor of the band, he knew everything, and he asked me because I was looking very hip, but not because I played very well. And after 4 gigs he said, Vrienten, there are 2 strings too much on your guitar, you should play the bass. And then I started playing bass because I wasn't good enough for the guitar.
How long before Dumar was?
Oh, this is in the early 60s.
Oh wow!
Like 62, 63, 64, 65, and I played in Dumar in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah.
Beginning of the 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was a long way, and what people tend to forget is that we were already 32 when it boomed in Holland.
Oh. On which instruments do you write your own music?
Piano or guitar.
Okay, never bass.
No. It's hard to play nice chords and you miss 2 strings to get. No, but I bass is always in my composition. Well, it used to be a very important part, but now I think bass is part of the orchestra, so I do it at the end. I put bass in it.
Okay.
The composition I make well, maybe you know, I for 30 years I made a lot of film scores. That's how I made my living after the band. And I never made rock music in the films. I worked with orchestras, and that's because I didn't want to compose like most. When you make a pop song, you have a chord or a riff, and then you, oh, it's nice, oh, good sound, and then you think of melody. And with the result that the melody is always like a lost baby, you know. So, I mean, not the best melody you can get because it's embedded in the chords or riffs you earlier thought of.
Okay.
But if you start with a melody, take a melody you had played on the piano, and then later on add the chords or the riffs or whatever you want to do, or the orchestra, and the melody is always first, and that's the way I compose.
Brings me to also when you played in Symphonica and also with a live orchestra. What were the preparations like for that? Did you?
It took a long time, like 1 year and a half, and we had 4 arrangers which I picked, and I had very long conversations with them, and they made drafts, and then because when you make groove music, which Duma did, kind of reggae, ska, and you let the orchestra play the chords, which an arranger does, you know, the bass and then the alt violins, and then he builds it up, and I didn't want any of that, because I knew then it would be plump and big and pathetic and tasteless and kitsch.
Oh, okay.
And so what we did is I let them all arrange like the old soul records did, you know, like the strings very high, unisono, all the copper, the horns, only dots, tat tat, da whatever, and the band was the bass. The bass is for the orchestra, so we played like we always played. Bass, guitar, keyboard and drums, and everything. So it was what nobody expected, and everybody feared that we would lose the groove, but we didn't.
In the 80s, in the videos I saw from the 80s, you were playing much with a lot of fingers.
Yeah.
And then in the Symphonica, you were playing the pick. Was that a gradual, or was that just for that evening, or is that?
No. When I play on a record or when I play in a small ensemble, I play with my fingers. But when I have to keep the bass sound upright against 80 musicians, then I need definition, and the pick has definitely more definition than fingers, because they soften the tone. And I wanted a lot of bass, and if you have a lot of bass and you have no right definition, it floats away, especially in a hall where 40,000 people you know, it's so a lot of time, also in the 80s, I played with a pick when we played in very big places to keep definition.
Oh wow. What is your preferred, when you play, when's the last time you played bass on a concert?
That's a good question. That was then, I think. We did 20 more gigs in the country.
Okay.
After that, 20 bigger halls, and which were luckily all sold out after 4 times Gelderdoom. So we were very happy about it. But I play bass all the time, because when I make a recording or I play with friends, and the rhythm goes on. It doesn't have